At a team meeting, Maya snapped at the colleague over a minor mistake. Embarrassed, she avoided eye contact for the rest of the day. Later, her manager gently pulled her aside and said, "You okay? You are not usually like that." Maya sighed it. "I guess I'm just overwhelmed. My dad's been sick and I haven't really talked about it." Her manager nodded. "That's a lot to carry alone. It's okay to be human here." For the first time in weeks, Maya felt a weight lift. Not because the problem had disappeared, but because she let someone see it. From that day on, she learned that feelings aren't signs of weakness, they are signals. Listening and expressing them is essential. Emotional granularity is about accurately reading ours and others' internal emotional states. When we are aware of our physical internal sensations and conceptualize them correctly, we use words and behaviours to express them accurately. So far, we have made 3 steps. In the first step, you started understanding the science behind how emotions are constructed. The second step was learning to be aware of our sensations and core feelings. And the third step was about rethinking our concepts and beliefs. In the fourth step, we are going to learn to differentiate and label our emotions, our emotional experiences precisely. Why is granularity so essential in the creation of empowering emotional assets? According to several research studies, higher emotional granularity is associated with better emotional regulation, coping strategies, and overall psychological well-being. For instance, when individuals can distinguish between similar emotions, like anxiety versus sadness, they are better equipped to select appropriate coping strategies tailored to their specific emotional experiences. Let's imagine how children learn emotional concepts, as Lisa Feldman Barrett described in her book How Emotions Are Made. The moment a baby bursts into this strange new world, they are bombarded with noisy, ambiguous signals from the world and from their body. They recognize some regularities, and their brain begins computing probabilities of which sights, sounds, smell, touches, tastes, and interoceptive sensations goes together and which don't. Babies have a natural interest in listening to speech, and gradually they infer the boundaries between syllables and words. Babies can learn complex regularities between sound and vision as well. They form hypotheses, assess probabilities based on their knowledge, and integrate new evidence from the environment. They can even express their preferences. From infancy, children have an affinity for processing speech signals and quickly realize that speech is one way to access the information inside other people's minds. Through words, they assimilate concepts. Words encourage infants to form goal-based concepts by inspiring them to represent things. Infants learn to categorize the world in ways that are meaningful and predictable to us, and so we can communicate, share experiences, and perceive the same world. When an adult speaks a word to a child, they offer a tool to expand reality. Children gain emotional concepts through experiencing feelings connected with words. For example, when a child didn't like her food, she could split it out, and her physical actions were accompanied by different facial movements and different changes in body budget, while his parents uttering words like, "Are you angry?" Over time, she will associate these patterns and contexts with the sound angry. Most importantly, she learned which actions and feelings most effectively achieved her goals. As they learn a concept such as anger, they can predict other people's movements and expressions and their own sensations to construct perceptions of that emotion. So we are constantly learning and distinguishing different emotions using words such as joy, happiness, sadness, fear, excitement, awe, sorrow, disgust, contempt, pride, surprise, and anger. People who exhibit moderate emotional granularity might have thousands of emotional concepts rather than hundreds. When the mind has an impoverished conceptual system for emotion, it's hard to express and understand emotions. There is a natural condition called alexithymia, which affects about 10% of the population. These people have difficulty experiencing and perceiving emotions. They complain of physical feelings of affect but fail to experience them as emotions. In situations where a person with a proper conceptual system might experience anger, people with alexithymia are more likely to experience stomachache. How to develop emotional granularity skills? One effective method for enhancing emotional granularity is intentional practice and engaging in emotional experiences. Research indicates that emotional granularity can increase when we actively focus on and reflect on emotional experiences. It will help us to elaborate and diversify our emotional vocabulary. I love to play with words and find unique names for specific emotional experiences. I bring some examples. I can't wait to experience it after a winter time, apricity. This is an archaic English word that means the warmth of the sun in winter, experiencing the gentle embrace of every sunbeam. I remember a few weeks ago I was sitting outside the coffee shop garden exposing myself to that unique experience of apricity. Sometimes we come across other language emotion words that have no equivalent in our language. For example, Schadenfreude is a German emotion word meaning pleasure for someone else's misfortune. Or another example, the Dutch word gazing expresses the emotion of comfort, coziness and togetherness while being in home with friends and loved ones. You will experience it if you are in that situation with a friend who is explaining to you with conceptual combination in your language. Once you notice a feeling, put it into words, silently or aloud. For example, I feel anxious, my chest is tight, I'm worried about the meeting. It might sound simple, but effective labeling has a significant calming effect on the brain. Brain images studies reveal that labeling an emotion activates the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex and reduces activation in the amygdala. In other words, naming your emotions is like hitting the brakes on a stress response. Why? This is likely because it turns a nebulous thread into a concrete things you can reflect on, engaging more analytical neural circuits. This aligns with the old saying, name it to tame it. So, when you are in a swirl of feelings, pause and label. I am feeling X. If possible, be specific. Instead of telling I am feeling bad, maybe I am feeling unappreciated and frustrated. The more precise the label, the more effectively you recruit the brain's regulatory regions. Mindfulness practices have also been shown to be beneficial in developing emotional granularity. Mindfulness helps us to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgments, so which can lead to a greater awareness of subtle emotional differences. Incorporating mindfulness techniques such as meditations or focused breathing can help us become more attuned to our emotional states and enhance our ability to label emotions accurately. Engaging in activities that promote interoceptive awareness, the ability to perceive internal bodily signals such as body scan meditations and yoga, can also enhance emotional granularity. So take time for this exercise. The breath is one of the most powerful levers to influence emotion because it directly influences the automatic nervous system. When you notice an intense feeling, heart racing, mind spiraling, take slow, deep breaths. Specifically, exhale longer than you inhale. This kind of breathing activates the vagus nerve and shifts you towards the parasympathetic state, which lowers heart rate and blood pressure. While breathing, do a grounding exercise. Focus your attention on the present moment and your immediate sensations. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the chairs supporting you. Look around and name 5 things you see. Grounding pulls you out of the spiral of thoughts into a here and now, where usually the immediate moment is safer than your thoughts about it. These techniques are staples for managing acute anxiety and anger. They prevent you from being hijacked by the fight or flight response by quite literally calming the body, which sends a signal back to the brain that it can calm down too. Context and environment are essential to emotions. Emotions aren't formed in isolation. Social context provides cues to our brain uses to categorize feelings. Seeing a snake-shaped object in the zoo might not generate fear because you predict that's probably being behind the glass. Fostering a supportive environment that encourages open discussions about emotions can also play a crucial role in developing emotional granularity. Engage in social interactions that promote emotional expression and validation. Find a safe space to enhance your emotional vocabulary and granularity over time. Be a collector of experiences, seeking out new ways to expand your perspective and gain new, more nuanced concepts. Try new things and see how it is. I love to construct new words. My new emotional experience word is cool exit. When I am coming out from my morning routine of cold water immersion, I experience a mixture of emotions of reinvigoration, excitement, and freshness. I call it cool exit. I encourage you to create your own emotional words. A great way to build awareness and granularity is by keeping an emotional journal. Each evening, jot down the strongest emotions you felt that day, what triggers them, and how you responded. The act of writing not only labels emotions but also provides insight into patterns. Research on expressive writing finds that writing about emotional experiences can improve mood and immune system. It helps organize and integrate thoughts and feelings, literally making meaning out of them. In your journal, don't just write, "I was angry today." Try to expand it. "I felt angry when my idea was ignored in the meeting. My neck and face were hot. I notice I often feel this when I don't speak up." The awareness is the first step to change. You might realize a pattern. Let's say, "When I skip lunch, I am more irritable," or "criticism from family hits me hardest," which empowers you to address underlying causes. Phenomenology, a philosophical movement founded by Edmund Husserl and developed by Heidegger, Ponty, and others, focuses on describing experience as it is lived from a first-person perspective. Phenomenologists are interested in what it is like to have conscious experience and how emotions shape our perception in the world. This approach aligns well with constructivism, reminding science that subjective experience is a primary data source that explains our memories and actions. Heidegger argued that we are always in some mood, and that mood is a primordial way in which the world is revealed to us. Moods act as lenses through which we perceive reality. Phenomenology also emphasizes that emotions are typically intentional. They are about something and inform us about value, urgency, or importance. So reflect on it. Emotions are about something. What do they want to tell me? What memories do they bring up? What beliefs am I holding? Is there any urgency? Why is this situation important for me? There is another side of emotional granularity, reading other people's emotions. Several studies demonstrated that people varied tremendously in how they differentiate their emotional experiences. According to the classical view of emotion, our faces hold the key in reading emotions objectively and accurately, but researchers argue that facial movements have so much variations within an emotion category like fear that you cannot detect a pattern. It has been shown that the same emotion can be expressed by the same person in many variations, in different contexts, and on different occasions. In search of fear in the brain, for instance, for many years, scientists have considered it a textbook case of localizing emotion to a single brain area, namely the amygdala, a group of nuclei found deep in the temporal lobe. Several findings undermine the idea that amygdala contains the circuit for fear. The brain must have multiple ways of creating fear, and therefore the emotion category fear cannot be localized to a specific region. The brain contains core systems that create a wide variety of mental states. A single core system can play a role in thinking, remembering, decision-making, seeing, hearing, and experiencing diverse emotions. A single brain area of network contributes to many different mental states. Fear is not a pattern of a single brain activity, but emerges from the interaction of core systems. A single neuron can contribute to more than one outcome. So the question is, are you a face reader or a mind reader? No, you are not. Surprisingly, we do not recognize or detect emotions in others. These terms imply that an emotion category has a fingerprint that exists in nature, independent of any pursuer, waiting to be found. However, in reality, we perceive a category of emotion, and our perception is a construction as well. So emotions do not shine forth from the face or another part of the body because we make emotions. We construct our emotional experiences and conceptualize them by words. So anytime you think you know someone else's emotions, your confidence has nothing to do with actual knowledge. We must all give up the fiction that we know how other people feel. Being curious about your friend's experience is more important than being right. This alone is a liberating idea. You don't need to read others' emotions. Just be curious. It will change the quality of your conversations. You and I communicate emotion in the face of enormous variability through the brain's predictive machinery. Your predictions guide your emotions, and as I observe you, the emotions I perceive are guided by my predictions. Emotional communications happens, therefore, when you and I predict and categorize in synchrony. It's not impossible to reach this level, but usually we don't have too many people around us to experience it with. It can be your partner if you have common goals and beliefs. Concepts are resonating. Probably we should be friends to understand each other's emotions correctly. Here is one useful approach. Never assume that you know someone's emotions. Rather, ask questions. Be curious. However, this picture is not complete. We have to deal with unconscious feelings. Sometimes we get consumed by the emotions of others. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt tense and awkward due to the frosty atmosphere? Usually, it's because those already in the room have had a big argument before you showed up. You have no way of knowing that you weren't there and nobody has told you anything. Those already present might even be trying to talk and act normally. You still know that something has happened because you can feel it, but you don't know why and where it comes from. Why does this happening? Evolutionary, we are ingrained for empathy, and our mirror neurons help us to imitate and feel others' feelings. Being altruistic and selfless was a very selfish self-preservation mechanism. Taking care of others' emotions most of the time is a good thing. But in this case, we can talk about empathy when you don't know who is feeling what. Empathy, primarily a subconscious emotional process, still involves cognition. We need to be aware of another individual's doing or feeling things, so we can differentiate that someone else has a feeling. The interesting thing here is that we we can detect and experience external emotions without consciously recognizing that they come from someone else, and this is called emotional contagion. It means that you are sharing the feeling of others without the vital element of self-other distinction, without which we can't experience empathy. Walking into a frosty room, the post-argument individual's emotions influence their bodies and actions. They are displaying signs of hostility, tension, or fear. And your brain is picking all this up. Your mirror neurons are still being activated by what we perceive others as doing, and their emotional information they detect as being recorded, causing you to experience similar feelings. But in this case, that information isn't being shared with your higher cognitive areas. You experience something, but you don't know why or where it's coming from. It might seem quite alarming that our feelings can be essentially influenced by others who are themselves in a highly emotional state. We are the creators of our emotions, but we can experience emotions without knowing where they are coming from. So usually this happens when we are with others. Just imagine when someone yawns, whether you want or not, you do the same thing. Yawning is contagious. According to Dr. Dean Barnett, a neuroscientist, recent studies suggest that yawning might express fatigue. Similarly, we are laughing when we are amused, a way of communicating our internal state to others. Knowing that one of your group members is very tired evolutionary is important information for a social species relying on each other for survival. So simply put, yawning is an involuntary body movement triggered by our internal state that displays how we are feeling to others, which compels them to do and feel the same. It's perfectly normal for other people to have a powerful yet subconscious effect on what we do and how we feel. So emotional contagion is a useful and a good thing, but emotional contagion has a negative side as well. When people gather in large enough groups, they often behave and think in less rational and reasonable ways. Emotional contagion can make us more hostile or aggressive to others who are considered to be our opponents or enemies. Why is this? A strong emotional environment can hamper our abilities to focus on and logically assess things. When we are deliriously happy, we think little of paying for things we can't really afford. When we are utterly furious, we can be genuinely dangerous to be around, because we have so little control over our actions. When emotions get too powerful, our cognitive ability is compromised. Feelings and cognition are working together. We can always choose how to experience emotions, but when we are driven by intense feelings, certain areas of our brain are activated and we have less energy, blood supply to deal with other neural regions, like interpretation. Metabolically, it's not possible to activate all of the brain at once. Studies have shown that strong emotions lead to a predictable increase in neurological activity in associated areas of the brain, alongside corresponding decrease in important cognitive regions. So this explains why emotional contagion can lead to the famous mob mentality, where you effectively lose your self-awareness and self-control when you are part of a highly emotional group. being in a church or in a concert or in a sport event. This isn't to say that emotional contagion is bad, because it's not. It explains why we reflexively can feel so happy or angry when we are amongst people who have similar feelings. Knowing that people around us greatly influence our feelings, if we want to stay conscious in creating helpful emotions in line with our goals, we need to choose with whom we want to mingle. I hope this step will help you experience more nuanced emotions enriching your life. Start to work on the suggested exercises and see you next time.